years accountable. Okay. Okay. Let's start. I'm guessing people who are going to watch this are primarily going to be people who know you and me, and they know our backgrounds. And other people who are going to watch this, they will watch it because of the stories that we say and not because of our titles and functions and etc., etc. So I wanted to dive immediately into your story and how to present your people in this context that we talk about PhD a bit. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. And with those two categories of people, I say let's surprise both of those.
Let's do that. So as a first surprise, I wanted to talk a bit about circumstances and perfect circumstances. And I already have this image in front of me, you with the 8-month pregnant belly, flying all alone to Italy to defend your PhD thesis. So tell me about perfect circumstances.
Perfect circumstances. Okay, I want to make a little disclaimer. I'm going to answer the question. I love the question. I'm going to say a lot of things very bluntly and harshly and in seemingly black and white terms, because I think, well, let's be adequate here. There's always a gray zone. There are exceptions. There are certain circumstances, histories. In essence, what gives me a right to be so black and white is not because I'm all perfect and I know the right way. It's because of my experience. But I think one of the most damaging and unnecessary words in English language is perfect in the context where we use it now. And I think, yes, it's an illusion that perfect circumstances have ever existed for anyone who made it. We don't know what the actual circumstances are of other people. So my one and first and foremost sharp answer to that is it is an illusion that circumstances ever were for someone and can be in principle perfect. It is an illusion. And the most heroic part of defending PhD with a huge belly, defending it on time, was not necessarily related to the PhD itself, but it's few other topics. I don't want to elaborate on my personal life that much, but it's a lot of other things that were happening in parallel. And I also had enough support from my partner, and the support was really giving me a sharp, realistic picture that you have to finish it now. You have no idea how long this process of postponing and finding justifications or excuses can be. So he said, you don't want to be dragged there. Every single day, my partner got back from work. He was saying, did you write anything? Even 200 words is enough. So there are a lot of supporting elements, conflicting elements, and struggles that accompanied me and my journey to getting to a point where I was 8 months pregnant. I hopped on this airplane alone because my partner couldn't get his passport, long story, and I was determined to finish this PhD. Yeah, we can elaborate on that, but it is an illusion. Circumstances will never be perfect. It doesn't exist in principle, this perfection, the stars aligned. And if you're really smart, you will learn it faster and sooner and not buy into this illusion and wait.
Yeah. The fact why I address it is because, I also fall under that illusion. And during my PhD, I also caught myself up, just this one experiment, just this one more paper. And it's a never ending thing. Like you can write, you can never finish a PhD if you want to do another experiment and do another paper. And it continues, you finish your PhD and then you write more papers. If you want to stay in academia for a postdoc, and then you write more papers to become a professor. And it's like until you die, you can do this. So there is no, there is no perfect thing to say, okay, here, now it's the cut. I have deserved it. And that's...
Oh, deserve. It's a big word. I think this can be a separate episode just on that. Maybe not necessarily with me, but you kind of provoked me to say two things. Well, or maybe one thing. When we say we're waiting for perfect circumstances and whatnot, I think the brain wants certainty It wants these stars to align, and just another experiment, just another thing, and just another talk with supervisor, because we want guarantees that we will not fail. We want guarantees that there will not be someone among 12 people in the panel who will raise a flag and say, well, wait a minute, I have strong reservations about this argument, this assumption. And the interesting thing is, everything worthwhile pursuing in life, beyond the PhD, I want you to think really big. It has huge payoff to pursue it, because you're interested in this project, in this person, and this relationship, in this next level career goal. There are a lot of uncertainties and there are no guarantees. That's the beauty of it. It is an illusion, just like perfect circumstances are an illusion. I think we seek that because it gives us this false assurance or a guarantee that everything's going to be okay. We're not going to be criticized. We're not going to be rejected, or whatever the hell it is that we're afraid of. And that is a growth point. And again, why I'm saying it with such competence and confidence is because I deal with it every day, hopefully on a different level than I did when I was doing my PhD. So the stakes, the audience, the caliber of people you care about, or the opinions you care about, it changes and hopefully evolves, but we still all buy into this trap. Another thing I would like to invite our audience to do, if I may, Maria, is we're talking about PhD. We're narrowing it down because I understand this is a very relevant, acute, sometimes painful and sensitive topic for a lot of the people who will be watching this. But I invite you to take the logic, the validity of some claims we're making, the invitation we're throwing in to look at things from different angle, and to all other areas of your life. Because PhD, essentially, to me, is a metaphor for many other things that are happening, or the buttons that are being pushed during your PhD. The limitations that you're really struggling with during your PhD are a perfect little miniature example of what other things are happening or not happening that will have profound effect on other areas of your life. And yes, I'm talking about relationships, I'm talking about your self-worth, your determination with regard to a few other things. So that's just the
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you invite me to to bring up two things. Like on the first one, when you say you deal with it on a daily basis, hopefully on a different level than how you did, 10 years ago. Yeah, I also do that, like now making this video. It's the first time making a video. So like, I can think about it 10 more months. Is it going to be perfect? Am I going to have the perfect lighting? Now I was fixing what is my size to a frame ratio compared to your body to frame ratio and all these kind of things. But ultimately, what matters is the content. So we can always stay here thinking, okay, it's not good enough, it's not perfect enough. And then you stop yourself from putting it out there, whether it's a research paper, whether it is this video that you are making, whether it's something else that you are dreaming of or pursuing. Then ultimately, the value that you are not putting out there, it just stays hidden. That's also sad.
Now you jump to my concluding point, the stellar statement I wanted to make. But essentially, you're saying, regardless of circumstances and insecurities and all these hurdles that are here and hidden to the outside world, beyond the quality of internet and whatnot, it's action. It's making things happen through fear, through uncertainties, no guarantees, no mommy and daddy holding your hand. Always a risk of someone disagreeing and saying, well, you know what, and pointing a finger. I think you touched one big thing, and we will come back to it throughout this conversation. It's action. That's what I wanted to say. And that's what I carry through life. It's not perfect. It's messy. It's amateuristic. You should see the way I do yoga. And I proudly say I'm doing yoga. I think some people who are floating on a cloud may laugh at it. Nevertheless, action. I think there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah. But since you wanted to make it as a concluding remark, let's go back to PhD as a metaphor. I really like how you describe it. PhD as a metaphor for everything else. And there's one thing that I would like to touch upon, and that's boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
with people? Because you mentioned relationships, like PhD is a metaphor for everything else that's going on in your life. It's all the relationships that you have. So how are you setting boundaries, and how are you bringing this into the PhD sphere or like the academic world?
Mm-hmm. Well, boundaries is a very big topic, and now somehow we are all we're using these big terms in a popular psychology. Sometimes also we help ourselves with the clinical psychology and the Jungian psychology. First of all, let's leave that theory and big terms aside. I only feel the need to protect something. I am in action, protective of something, and want to defend something which needs protection. I'm going to say it one more time. You're not going to go out there in the world trying to build layers around something and try to have guarantees around something until and unless that something is a bit weak, a bit vulnerable, a bit shaky, and needs this kind of support. Boundaries for me is first and foremost knowing yourself. Believe it or not, when you enter the room, before you open your mouth and tell us about your PhD and about your age and your excellent background and academic credentials, there is something in you, innate in you as a human being, the compilation of your experiences, thoughts, energy, I don't know, what you bring on the table as a human being in totality that speaks out louder. And the world reads through you, through this, on how should we treat you? Where do we have to stop with our criticism? Where do we have to stop with our question? When are you going to get married, Maria, or whatever? And I think boundaries is really about you first and foremost. What is it that you're emanating? What is the baggage with which you come? What are the vulnerabilities where you're not inviting anyone? And when they're approaching even, you have kind of a red flag inside you. So speaking of boundaries, I think the first step that to be perfectly fair, I have to take a step back. When I entered the PhD experience, I had a privilege and luxury that life forced me to work since the age of 18, which means I had to grow up. I have to understand that I'm entering a context where, thank God, regardless of my age and lack of experience, people are willing and able to pay me for apparently some value I can bring on the table. So I was already kind of immune a bit to this adult conversation. This is not mom and dad. You have to put something valuable on the table. And I think for many, many peers with whom I studied, towards whom I have great respect and I admire them immensely in many ways, I think in all honesty, it was their first experience of really cutting the cord with the context where there are teachers, there are moms and dads, and I'm here and I'm small and you're big and great and you have to give me and you owe me, all of that. So in the context of PhD, if we speak about boundaries, I think it is the first fora where you really have to assert yourself on equal manner. And a lot of us are not prepared to that. Not because we're bad, not because we're stupid idiots, but because we're too green and young. And these are the kind of things that are not going to be grown. You're not going to become comfortable with these things because we talked about it, because I watched 65 podcasts or I had 65 coaching sessions. It is through experience, just like you build muscles. You could pay me €1 billion. I cannot build that six-pack for you on your belly. You have to show up. You have to feel the pain and sweat of it. And I think boundaries in a messy and maybe somewhat vague way is something about knowing yourself and building that six-pack through sweat and most of the time some sort of a resistance from outside world where you can calibrate yourself and understand, okay, that's where they finish and I, as a grown person, assert the limits of their influence, their opinion, their decision-making power and authority over my life. So this is a bit abstract, a bit ambiguous, but the safest way in which I want to approach the topic of boundaries in the context of PhD, in the context of young, intelligent, ambitious, hardworking people.
So does it mean in your case, because you had this work experience before, you already trained this muscle? So when you entered the PhD, this was, you could say that you already had built up muscle and this was not a big deal for you?
I think there are a lot of circumstances, and I don't want to get a trophy here and say, yes, I was. I don't know what the situations are that people are dealing with. There are complex personalities, and sometimes they clash, not because of the fault of anyone, but it's really contradictory, clashing personalities. But for me, it really helped to have, I think I had about 7 years of this experience of being adult, of being responsible for what I'm doing or not doing. I better have a very good justification for why something didn't happen. And I went to PhD with very clear idea that I sold to a European university that is multidisciplinary, that I can do it, and I have professional experience and academic credentials to pull this off. So in a way, yes, I think I had this privilege. Life forced me to have and build this privilege. No girl in Uzbekistan at the age of 18 says, you know what, I'm going to go, and on top of my very, very demanding academic university setting, I'm also going to earn some money. It's a separate topic. Life forced me to become so mature and adult at an early age. But I think I took all of that to my PhD. And I remember going to Columbia University, and we were sitting in the room, and then we were talking about the rights of the children and the labor law and how it's violated in many countries. And then I stood up and I had to give them a glimpse of realities that people are dealing with, how labor law is such a terrible child labor, and the laws against it, it's such a fancy topic. But if you cut it out, some people will starve, because the only person who can work in the family is a 13 and 14-year-old boys and their 13-year-old daughter who can sell some food in the market. And so that was a perspective. It's experience that gave me this authority with which I could speak. And I definitely brought all of this to my PhD. I was very lucky with my supervisor, who gave me a lot of room, a lot of respect, a lot of liberty. And so I'm very lucky in that sense. But I've earned that luck, if you know what I mean, by the experience that I had to build up on the journey towards my PhD. I also know that not all of us are that lucky or unlucky. And so I'm trying to be also moderate in my style.
No, I really like, this is also like call to action, saying the experience that you had. You build a reputation through the experience, not by getting a diploma and this and that and saying, okay, now I can do this, but having the actual experience and, comfortably standing up in front of a crowd at Columbia or wherever you were, which also reminds me of one thing that you told me privately, that you were giving a presentation once, and then, you had this confidence that about what you were presenting and that you can help people. And people approach you and ask if you have a diploma in this and that. So, this is a funny
That's a very
concept. How people see, okay, you have the diploma, now you are ready to go in the world, and good luck.
Things, Well, okay, if you're going to have a plastic surgery or a more serious surgery, which is not about vanity but real health, you want this person to be really, really experienced in neuroscience or whatever, and have all the proper diplomas and credentials in place. But there is another realm where people assert their authority and enter the room with credentials, but without experience, without the muscle, without knowing what it feels like. I think it's very questionable for me. Yes, I took a liberty of hosting a couple of talks on the mindfulness and the mental health during Corona for expat audience predominantly for women. And then I extrapolated the logic of some of the big clinical or popular psychology terms. And then after the talk, the guy approached me actually through LinkedIn, I think. And then we had a quick chat, and he said, so what is it? Are you like a psychologist? Are you a therapist? Are you a certified coach? And I bluntly had to say, well, none of it, actually. All of this I speak because of my experience and genuine curiosity in dealing with all these turmoils of life. What is it that I can do? I mean, there is this instrument that we're given, and all these popular psychology books tell you mind power, you can do anything, this and that. So, yes, I would definitely not get onto treating people and doing all the weird things, but I think experience is one determinant of whether the new knowledge, the new vision, the new something is actually internalized or not. Let me give you And I think I want everyone, if you take one sentence out of this whole conversation today, if I may, Maria, it's this. By all means, please work on your well-being. By all means, watch podcasts, read books, seek help and support of peers, of people who get you, whom you can respect intellectually, but also on some sort of a invisible realm of soul and your being. Until and unless the knowledge and insights you have accumulated, the alternative views that you thought, oh, you know what? Actually, yes, that's very empowering. I'm going to do that. Until and unless you take some of it and translate it into action, you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, something is different in your actions, reactions, and also interaction with the actual world out there. It's an entertainment. It's like this very powerful, emotionally striking film that you watch. We're all in tears. Oh my God, it was so inspiring. And that's it. And then I go to work and something happens. Your boundaries are violated. Or you really want this new next level something, but you never claim it because there are no guarantees that you are actually boy or girl for this job. So please think of, out of those things that truly impact you and trigger something in you, try to convert it into some action, a new way of doing things, or at least showing up to life. That's very important. Until and unless you do that, it remains to be entertainment.
Totally. I had this written as a conclusion.
Okay. We were going to come up with something towards conclusion. Don't worry.
Yeah. Totally. And also, like seeing, for example, in the bookshelves or online, how much you can find about self-help and all these kind of things. And I have to say, I've been there as well. You know, in a second, or like while you are reading it, it makes you feel good because you start maybe understanding things. And then you're like, okay, now I understand it. But from just knowing to implementing, there is a huge step to take. So if it just stays in the realm of knowledge, yeah, it's entertainment. It's also like watching Netflix and watching a documentary, and yeah, it's nice. I watched this documentary about fantastic fungi. It's nice, but yeah, how am I going to use it in my life? It was an entertainment. But if we are looking for ways how we can improve ourselves, and as you say, like, I don't know, set boundaries or ask for a different job or ask for, change things around us, then this requires action and also failing.
Oh my God, this is very relevant topic for me also today, but I'll let you finish. Yes, please, invite me, trigger me with the topic of failing. I love it.
Yeah, now in my mind, I had this post that I made on Instagram, and I really love it, about trials and errors. And also, it comes back to something you were saying before, the experience and all these trials and errors during the PhD. So let's put it in the context of PhD. Somehow people get this notion that only when they get a diploma after, 4 years of experience. So it means for 4 years, you have been reading state-of-the-art papers. You have been extracting information, understanding, trying to see where the gaps are, trying to explore areas where those gaps are, doing experiments, failing at experiments, repeating experiments, etc., etc. So 4 years, there's something that's going on. And people believe that if they don't have the diploma in the end, it was all worthless, pointless. Like, who's going to hire me if I don't have this piece of paper? And I always come back and say, but you have all the experience. So people are not hiring you because you have a piece of paper. They're hiring you because you have all this knowledge that maybe, it failed because it was out of your influence. We cannot influence everything. So it really depends which group we go into, what kind of resources we have, etc., etc. A lot of things do depend on you, but sometimes it can happen that something is out of your reach. So I want to make this statement so that people don't get this excuse and say, it was out of my reach. No, you do everything that is up to you, and sometimes it will suck and it will not end up nice as you wanted. But it does not diminish all the years of work and experience that you have behind you.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I'm not sure if there is a lot more than I can or should be adding here. I'm going to take this logic to something beyond the PhD. It's very relevant to what you're saying. It's very relevant to finishing the project in any area of your life. Good is good enough. But then failure is a very important thing, because people think if I get a PhD and a star, and I'm the star of the show, I'm the graduate, I'm there is a term in these Ivy League schools, but anyway, then it counts. Then it's good. First of all, there is no good or bad. There is experience. We all want the nice, shiny, golden side of the moon, but there are very deep and dark craters, and there is a dark side of the moon as well. And I think if you can do one thing well, if you can handle failure gracefully, and what do I mean by that? Gracefully means it's not just one final judgment that beats you up and you remain on that couch for the rest of your life. Graceful means you learn something from it. Graceful means you can actually evaluate, touch the reality and say, well, actually something went wrong here, and I still struggle with this element. I kind of know why it went astray. Or if you can cope, deal with failure gracefully, and most importantly, if you can get up as a human being in one piece and continue your journey in life, this is the biggest gift you can give to yourself. And this is one of those things you cannot learn in theory. Nilufar and Maria can tell you, oh, it's okay to fail. You're still wonderful. You're still capable. You have to go through the experience. You have to smash your head against the wall at some point, thinking it's a door and it's going to open for you. It's going to do great things, but not. You have to work for something really hard, expecting a trophy and a star pasted on your, forehead, and you don't get it. And for a very good reason. I think the sooner we can come to peace with the fact that sometimes we don't win, sometimes we're not the best, sometimes we genuinely are not competent enough, or we make a mistake, or it's not our thing altogether, and I have to not spend another 5 minutes and move on to another area and pursue myself in this area. I think we have to redefine what failure is and what it means to us. Because believe it or not, the most scary, harsh, huge things like failure, loser, disaster, worthless, put your own big, ugly, shitty word on there, what you never want to be. It is the meaning you assign to it that is hurting you. You never really know what is in the minds and brains of people. 80% of the time, they don't care. They have their own problems. So if you can redefine a failure, make it an absolute and inevitable part of any endeavor, if you can learn from it, but most importantly, get up and still constructively move on with your life, I think it's a great thing. I failed monumentally in relationships. I failed monumentally in jobs. I met this amazing young lady. We talked and we had this connection, and she just told me that she found this amazing job. She's super excited, and that she was struggling in the previous job and she was actually fired. I said, oh, you know what? I was fired from one job I wanted so much. I was 18 years old. She said, I don't believe it, Nilufar. There was this young woman looking at me saying, I don't believe that anybody could ever fire me. I was like, no, I was fired. Well, they didn't extend my contract, but for me, at the age that I was and with the effort I put in, it looked like firing. It was a big deal. Thank God it happened, Maria. So I'll stop here. Failure?
No.
Let's learn to live with it and deal with it gracefully. It's my invitation very much for myself today in realities of my ambitions, my personal life, my professional life, and other personal goals I set for myself. It's very much valid and relevant. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the energy that you bring this with. So it's not like, okay, there is this caring energy from your side, but there is also like, okay, you need to get things done. Otherwise, you cannot expect things to happen for you. So this is really somehow spans throughout the conversation. The action needs to be on your side. Like you can have whatever you want around you, but if it does not come from you, there is no outcome.
Definitely. You have to be this authoritative CEO-like voice inside. I will take a little moment here, and I think it's very much relevant to where we started. We started with an illusion that the situation or circumstances will be perfect. Now we've somehow come to failure and whatnot. I want to say one thing. If you asked me 10, 20, 30 years ago, if you asked 10-year-old Nilufar if it's a good thing that I have so many challenges, financial, this, that, I was a chubby kid, I struggled with, well, is it a good thing? Answer would be absolutely not. I definitely would love to have a different pair shoes, different setup in the school, different treatment from teachers and people in my life, a totally different scenario in this relationship and that. But now I understand in the whole wisdom and beauty and glory of life, there is nothing, no single muscle of worth, value, competence, confidence, anything valid and applicable to you as a human being that can grow in theory. It is life that has to hold your hand. And a lot of the good stuff is not built because you're sitting on a couch. You have a perfect set of parents, amazing economic, social conditions. It gets to be built against some resistance that's pushing in the opposite direction. So in an interesting way, if you ask me now, I'm 41 years old, I wouldn't have it any other way because it was such a profound fuel. They didn't invite me. They didn't say, oh, maybe, Nilufar, you could look at it. It pushed me. You want a different pair of shoes? Work for it. You want a different life? Work for it. You want different anything? You have to work for it. And what I'm trying to say, look at the challenges of your life with profound respect. Look at those imperfect parents with a profound respect and the way they challenged you and some muscles that you got built thanks to the fact that they are this way, thanks to the fact that your social economic context is this way. Thank God your supervisor is this way and he's not holding your hand. I'm sorry, but yeah, he's not wiping your ass and inviting you to be on a higher level and show up to this joint collaboration on a peer-to-peer level. Oh, there's some room to grow some important muscles that will serve, again, beyond this PhD throughout your life. So I needed to make this, Maria.
No, this provokes one sentence in me that I heard recently, and that is that the wounded person is the best healer. Meaning, like, if you went through a specific experience, like you explained here, there is something that you needed to fight for, and there is a wound in your experience, or and you manage to heal that wound yourself, then you can also, heal best yourself as well in similar things when they arrive. And you have also proven to yourself that you can do this, but you can also give an example to others, because you know how it feels when you are in that place.
Right.
And everything that you are sharing here, I truly appreciate it because you will see that this comes from your experience. It's not like books that you have read because you spent all your years in library, but it's really experience talking from you.
Well,
thanks.
I think that's a very good remark. And I'm trying as much as I can to keep this conversation as valid to the realities of PhD students and whoever it is who decided to spend their valuable time watching this. But as much as we're trying to make it, I hope I can speak on behalf of both of us, relevant to PhDs, the invitation still holds true to expand the logic and the implications or the invitation that we're putting out there to all other areas of who you are as a person. What are your main other interactions with the world around you?
Totally. Here we try to pinpoint some things for PhDs, but ultimately, it's valid for everything. Yeah. As you say, there are areas in our lives nowadays that we are struggling with, and we are trying to apply the same things that we were talking about here. So it also comes from our experience, not only during these 3 or 4 years of the PhD, but our whole lives so far. So it's decades. Yeah, I want to look at the notes that I made to make sure that I don't forget something. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how much we touched upon this, but privately you were saying something about the chatter in our heads, what people are talking about us. And it was very beautiful what you said. You said the chatter about others judging you is within your head.
Yeah.
So the judgment is only from you to you. The struggle is between you and you. Oftentimes that's the biggest, we are the people who are our biggest enemies that we need to face.
sounds so abstract and self-helpy and whatnot, but it is an utmost fundamental truth of life. You will die one day. You will leave this planet, hopefully not too soon and not too unexpectedly without drama. You will never know what 80%, 90%, 95% of people around you ever thought about you. And you may be surprised if we could really measure this in a meaningful way, how little they think about you, because they're worried about the same nonsense you were worried with, but in relation to themselves, not you, with all due respect. So I think we are all here for the next level something. Next level could be, I want a better body. I want to lose, 10 kilograms by the next spring, for example. Well, I now earn, 500 euros next month or next year. My goal is to increase it, double it, triple it, quadruple it, whatnot. Whatever it is, the next level result, your utmost fears, the thing that's holding you back from even trying to acknowledge your bigger goals, objectives, ambitions is a fear of rejection, criticism, world laughing at you, saying, she failed. I call it the big finger pointing at you. Disapproving finger. And the interesting thing, it's a phantom of your imagination. Most of the time, we genuinely know how to admire others. We genuinely know how to forgive those who fail on the pursuit of something that's so important and so genuinely, and we say, wow, I think that I really want to defend this statement I made to you in person, that we are always struggling with us. This voice is so alive and so powerful, first and foremost in your own mind. And then when I said that if you can come to peace and get a more constructive relationship with the fact that you will fail, that there is this element in your life that will be present throughout, like hanging right here with every pursuit that you might fail. It may go a different way. I think that's a continuation of this conversation on failure, but from another angle, this big pointing finger, criticism, rejection, whatnot, 80% of it is just phantom of your imagination. It's so ingrained in your mind. I like to make these kind of statements a bit more substantiated. I genuinely believe the most valuable tool modern human being, bombarded by information, also self-help books, also all these Marias and Nilufars are coming with their opinions. One most profoundly personal and important tool is pen and paper and time and space where you have undisturbed, honest, messy, soggy, full of tears kind of a conversation with yourself. And as one of the thought experiments, one exercise you can take away from today is when something is scaring you in terms of what terrible things can happen, take pen and paper and write all the most terrible things that can happen if you decide to pursue something important for you. And then you will write it. Do not stop until you feel 3 pages. Go absurd about it and do not stop. Also, let your subconscious just to give you all the absurd, weird things that you think might happen. Picture yourself as a homeless person, rejected by whole society. You're not allowed to go to theater. I don't know. Make it absurd and ugly. But then I have a second part of the exercise for you. If because of this fear, you are not pursuing this and you maintain status quo or you go in the mainstream way, well, also, what are you afraid will happen if I never ever do it because I'm afraid? Well, that's going to be another layer, and it's also very, very interesting. Imagine, Maria, you have some ambition to become an artist, whatever. So yes, we can all laugh at it. We can all reject you. It can be a complete disaster. But what is the price you pay for not pursuing it? In a large scheme of things, it's going to be much more pricey, heavy, and disastrous, if I may say. So,
yes,
just an invitation.
I love this exercise. It's amazing. It's also something I exercise, honestly, with this podcast. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing, you say, people are going to say, look at this, look at the background, look at the light, look at whatever it is. And then I go to bed and I feel somewhere unfulfilled. Saying, but there's something I still want to bring out there. I want to say, I want to share. There is some vision that I imagine. So I'm thinking, 10 years down the line, will I care what people said about my background, about the light and things like that? Or will I care about the fact that I didn't know to do what I really had the desire within to do. So also putting this perspective, like in 10 years, what is going to be really important? What am I really going to remember? Then it also pushes me to say, okay, what is more important?
Yeah. And I say it with a lot of respect also for the limitations and the fears that we feel. I feel it too. And as a mother of 2 children, I also justify, well, if I didn't have 2 children and I didn't have these obligations. But I think I have a great respect for that. And I'm a very rational human being. I'm not spending my times in ashrams with the ambition to float on a cloud. I'm really down to earth, kind of a practical person. And when I say, well, do this, or I invite you to do that, it's really kind of an exercise or a thought experiment which should ground you in the realities, but to operate with more honesty and commitment to who you really are and what's important for you. Because it's so easy to be lost everywhere and everywhere. But Maria, I can also relate to the other part. I'm speaking about all these other things, be audacious, this, that, because this is also very much true for me in many other areas of my life. So we have to be very careful where our real commitments, real limitations that we as human beings living in 21st century who need to pay our bills, need to put, electricity in our house and whatnot, we need to take responsibility, but to be careful not to use it as an excuse to evade the fundamental truth that something so important is unattended, that we don't have guts and balls and self-belief to pursue it. And then we say, well, it's because of my children. Well, it's because of... You will not believe... Well, maybe I need to make a little disclaimer. I had a time when I was working a lot more with few people, mostly expat women, in private sessions. I was calling it self-esteem, empowerment, but it was really about your relationship with yourself. And then it was incredible for me what a big fig leaf to maintain status quo or an excuse is money. A lot of people who are struggling to do anything creative, even though they feel this and they look at these people on Instagram, they look at all... and they want to do it, and you feel this imperative only when you have something to put out there creatively. I mean, not everybody feels this. And then I would say, well, what is holding you back? And say, well, I have to pay bills. I have to go to this job that I hate. And, so then money was used as an excuse or justification not to do what is your calling, what is you're supposedly interested in. There is another provocative experiment. If you have this one big, beautiful, delicious thing that you cannot do because you don't have money, because you have to worry about money, just as a thought experiment, imagine there is a man and a woman out there who says, well, Maria, I believe you are a person to write this New York Times bestseller. I believe you are the person to paint these 2 or 12 paintings on this topic, and we're going to make an exhibit, maybe in New York. And because I believe in it so much, man or woman, here's the bag of 5 million euros in cash. Take it, buy yourself cheese, wine, whatever inspires you. I'm giving you 1 year. Sit in this room with this cash, all yours, and just give birth to this project. Do you think all of these people will just all of a sudden produce this? You know what I mean? I mean, if you just resolve the money element, how many of us actually sit down face to face and produce this or do this and embark on this other totally scary journey? So also an invitation to check on ourselves. When is the money, is this big bad guy that's preventing us from doing these amazing things?
Thank you, really. I'm looking at the time, but yeah. I mean, I could talk forever. But I'm just wondering, now people who are watching, just a kind of a disclaimer to say, we are sharing here things, and maybe sometimes it seems like, okay, you should do this or you should do that. Like, of course, there is a grain of salt that should be taken with it, that people take what serves them and leave what doesn't. And it's not that we have like in Serbian, we say we drank all the knowledge from the universe. That's absolutely not the case. So it's like our own struggles are seen through the sharing that we do here. So like we are also going through the same stuff.
100%.
Yeah. And I was wondering, what is for you? So if you say for people, if they would resolve the money, and then this would be the answer to wishes that they want to pursue. Do you have something like that right now?
Absolutely, 100%. And the stumbling block is not money. It's a combination of few things. And my rational part of brain, it says no. It's a very viable justification to postpone it, to not do it yet, or not to do it in a crazy way. But 80% of what I'm saying is a reminder to myself rather than to others. The energy with which I'm saying, the vigor, the enthusiasm I have around these topics is because this is a very valid, ongoing conversation with myself. And also when I say I did some coaching for other people, that I don't have an illusion that my mission is to save others, impact others, with all due respect for those who are doing it. Thank God there is a profession called, coaching, mentoring, therapist, whatever it is. Someone who is attending to that which is invisible, but is fundamental for our well-being as human beings. Thank God we have a whole plethora of those people. But long story short, these topics excite me so much because this is an ongoing conversation with myself. I do have my own limitations that I'm dealing with. I have many good stories that are excuses that justify the status quo. And in inviting others to be more comfortable with failure and with this big finger that's disapproving, that's a message first and foremost to Nilufar in here, who is also doubting certain things. That is my next level growth. That is my next level, creative expression and whatnot. So I'm not going to go into details with that, just considering that internet is such a agnostic, broad platform.
Once it's out there, it's unstoppable.
I won't stop here, but definitely.
Is there something else from your experience that you think this is really important that I need to share and we haven't touched upon so far?
Yeah. I will say one thing about the comfort zone. I think we hear about it a lot. And first of all, we have to define what are these big things. I want to be happy. I want to be rich. I want to be healthy. I want to be loved. Take a pen and paper, and when I'm loved, when I get to that point and the kind of love that I want, who the hell is it coming from? Who the hell on the planet should do what exactly for you to say, I arrived to this point. I have it. I have this big one, delicious thing that I wanted. Because our minds operate and we're busy and we don't know what on earth do we actually want. So whatever it is that's important for you, take pen and paper, and until you feel on autopilot, without stopping, 3 pages, do not even get up. I think one thing, my invitation is, get honest conversations with yourself about yourself, things that matter to yourself, so you have a clarity. What is the force that's moving you and where are you trying to get? That's very important. And another thing about comfort zone is, we think, what is your comfort zone really? Because anything and everything that we want, I argue, lies on the other side of the comfort zone. There is a very good scientific justification for that. Because your mind is not there to give you a Nobel Prize, to make you adventurous. Your mind, the most primary and fundamental part of it, which was there when you were a crustacean and you were scrolling, crawling and doing other things, is about your survival. We survive in the environments and conditions that are familiar, predictable, tested, which actually is recycled past. But now as 21st century women and men, we want to expand, we want to explore new horizons, which for some fundamental part of your brain is danger. I don't have neural paths. I don't know what it's like to be, fit and attractive. I don't know what it's like to be on stage with 500 people staring at me. I don't know what it's like to be A, B, C, D, and F. So danger. That explains very much why it's so hard to get out of your comfort zone. So I invite you to redefine your comfort zone. God, Comfort zone, the way we know it, is yesterday's news. It's recycled, familiar ways of being, acting, reacting, living. And it's a tomb. It's a tomb that you build around yourself as a boundary of what is familiar, safe. Okay, I can operate here. But comfort zone is actually a misery. Comfort zone is a stamp of where I will end and not do anything because it's dangerous, I don't know it. So redefine and look at what is the comfort zone. We're miserable on our comfort zone on a couch with popcorn and pizza and these 20 kilograms that we cannot apparently lose. She can, he can, all these guys after Tony Robbins' course, they can, but I cannot. It's a bullshit. So redefine what is comfort zone. Come to the understanding that a lot of things that you want lie on the other side. Yes, because we're a product of our past, you do not yet have these neural paths or muscles or a six-pack. You can get there. So poke it a bit, your notion of comfort zone. And then you will understand that your comfort zone is a disaster zone. It's a death zone. It's a blocked potential and so many ambitions and inspiration zone. It's a graveyard of unfulfilled dreams. So really name your comfort zone what it actually is. And I hope it's going to poke you enough, despite these fingers, despite uncertainties, failures, and all sorts of other conversations and chatters we have. I hope it will invite you to take a step, an actual new action in the real world that people can touch, measure, something can fall on your head, you can cry. But that's what.
Yeah. In this regard, I'm not fully sure if I would say comfort zone is a graveyard or of new things for sure, of your ideas, yes. But it also serves a purpose to keep us safe, as you were saying. Yeah. Because sometimes it can happen that maybe I want to earn, I'm just giving, something. I want to earn $1 million. But that is so far out of my comfort zone that if I make this step, I will freak out. I will, for sure, I will come back screaming and crawling to my comfort zone and say, forget it, forget the...
For me to crawl in fear, but okay, go on.
No, it's just what I want to say is that making, small steps out of your comfort zone, bit by bit. So in a sense, expanding your comfort zone seems like a solution that can be sustainable. Maybe, for some people, jumping totally out of your comfort zone, it's okay. But then, if you are used to, if you have a scale, and if you're used to things being here and the scale moves in this direction a bit, you are okay, you start to oscillate a bit. But then if you go all the way there,
also, it wasn't an invitation to just damn discomfort and just go 10 kilometers. No, doing something beyond it, yes. Questioning the boundaries of what is apparently possible or impossible or too much for me, yes. And questioning it on systematic basis, yes. If you move 2 centimeters every day, by the end of the year, maybe you've gone 1 or 3 meters ahead. So by no means am I saying be radical, cut your hair, paint it in green, I don't know, all the insane things, of course not. But something, doing, keyword doing, yes.
Yeah, definitely. And there's this, I have now an example of 2 different teams, bike racing teams, where one team was very focused on making big improvements. So having, 15% improvement in the equipment they're using or in the way they are cycling, or they focused on one single thing and put all their effort into maximizing this, having a huge percentage of improvement. Whereas the other team was okay, if we increase 1% on the shorts that we are wearing, 1% on the brakes that we are using, 1% on so looking at it from more, let's say, holistic perspective, everything in there, and change just 1% in all of them. It turns out that this different team had better, won actually the race than the team that was focusing only on one single thing. And I like this as a metaphor for us and our lives as well. So saying, it's not that in order to, get a 6-pack, you need to be doing 500 crunches a day, because that's not how it is going to happen. but it's also like how you are going to eat, how you are going to talk to yourself, how you are going to, adopt a posture that goes out there, and the mindset and people you surround yourself with, etc., etc. So there are like a lot of factors that are ultimately going to contribute to many more things to be improved.
Yeah.
And the six-pack is going to be just a side effect of
Not at
that.
all. That's a very good one. I haven't thought about it at all. And I'm looking at the time as well. I really want to finish and not to water it down too much. This is the last statement. I think it's very important in the context of a PhD or any big other endeavor that is maybe challenging us, frustrating us, pushing us out of what we thought were our limits and boundaries. It's useful to have your honest conversation with yourself, to know yourself. And sometimes the answer can be, I don't even want to win this race because this is not my race. Yes, 2, 3, 5 years ago, I had reasons. I thought I know myself. I thought this was the thing. But sometimes it's all about push, achieve, try, go against your fears. You have to know yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. And sometimes, yes, you will leave a relationship, a commitment, a project, a research project that is apparently not you. And thank God for this realization that you have it today, not 15 years from now when you stretched yourself so far on the endeavor that is, by definition, is not you. You will have an experience. And even if that is the case, and you look back and say, well, I'm throwing away 7 years of my life into garbage, you never are. Because the muscles and layers and richness of human being that has grown, yes. But I will finish with that. Fight your own battles. There is a great value in knowing what you are. And there is this exercise that a course of Tony Robbins taught us, 7 levels deep. When you're doing something, your brain has to understand what are you doing it for. Because I want to finish my PhD. Well, I finish MPhD, and then, well, I will have an academic job. And then I will publish it. And then. And you can arrive to a point where you will enjoy something that's available in a much easier, much more logical and pleasing way than this. So 7 levels deep. Answer, what am I doing this for? Why I'm doing it is weird. What am I doing this for? So that what? Yeah, I'll finish here.
Thank you, Nilufar. I really loved everything you shared.
Yeah, I love being here modestly. I invite people, if you mistakenly have put me on some sort of a pedestal, please don't. We are all human on our journey with our ups and downs. And thank you for having me here, Maria. I appreciate it immensely.